I don't know about you guys, but as a kid and then becoming a dad, something that I consistently liked the thought of was playing board games with the family. And sometimes it would happen, you know, you'd have your mandatory, it would feel terrible moment in Monopoly where someone in the family has a big strop and tries to throw everything. As we got a bit older, it started becoming Jackbox, which, depending on your audience, can vary between people being quite clever to everybody making Wang and Vagina references and everything in between. And then usually too much alcohol being involved and people ruining the times for themselves. But yeah, really the consensus seems to be that in a lot of occasions, the thought of playing board games or something similar with family and friends tends to be better than the actual result that you get. So the workaround for that in many cases is to not have multiple people in a room at the same time where they can fight and ruin each other's nights, and instead play games that are board games with digitized versions online. That was a very long preamble to say, Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization is a board game that is a digital version that we're going to play. It's not new, but it's something I wanted to show because for those that do like a relaxing hour or two playing a game maybe in the evening after work with a drink, possibly a stiff drink, depending how your day's gone, this sort of thing can be right up your alley if you do like a little bit of thinking, but not overly stressful thinking. So I'm just going to play a game of it. I'll explain the premise as we go. I'm going to play just a custom game. We'll play with 3 opponents. I'm just going to put them on medium AI. AI in this game is pretty good. The hard AI is brutal. Forewarning, not an expert at this game, just a casual player. We're going to play with a random mix of cards because there's 2 decks. It makes it harder for the player because you don't really know what's going to come. But it's more fun. So let's click play and I'll talk about it more as we go. It's a board game adaptation, so visually, is it the most beautiful thing you're ever going to see? Probably not. But it gets the job done. So, winning this game you need the most culture. We'll talk in more detail as we go. This starting turn, it's about picking what cards you want. So there's this conveyor belt at the top. Newest technologies, newest options come from the right, and over time they go to the left. Other players will be picking things. They get cheaper and cheaper to pick up until they disappear at the end. So at the end of our first turns, because the first turn works a little bit differently, let's say nobody picks Hammurabi, he'll be gone. You can see the X in the corner. We might want Hammurabi because he lets you use an extra civic action based on your military points. We'll talk about what they look like in the bottom right corner later. He's not terrible. He's not super exciting. He's fine. I like on the first turn just to pick up a wonder if it makes sense. If we picked up the Library of Alexandria, it would take 2 picks. We only get 2 picks on this turn, as you can see in the bottom right corner. So if we pick the Library of Alexandria, which I do like, this is the only thing we'd be able to do. So we could pick, say, Hammurabi and either Stonehenge or the Roman roads, which is what I'm thinking. We'll do one or the other. Roman roads are interesting because they change their effect as the game goes by. Stonehenge, though, gives you immediate science, and it gives you a happy face. We'll talk more about the consequences of that later, too. I'm going to take Stonehenge and Hammurabi and just let it go. I'm having the AI's turns zoom by because, well, we've got enough going on as it is. We don't need to micromanage what the AI is doing. So this game is roughly split into 3 ages. Ish. We did our age A turn, then there's ages 1, 2, and 3, and then there's a turn at the end that they call age 4. So it's going to split this video nice and easily for me as we go through time. So, lots going on the screen, so let's quickly run through everything you see. How much food you have, how much production you have, how much science you have, how much culture you have. We've already talked about the top bar. And then if we go down the middle, we have our military, our food production, our production, science production, and then we have our other urban buildings here, which we don't have any right now. Any wonders will be in the top. You can see that we already picked our Stonehenge, it's just not built yet. And then we have these blocks are blue tokens. They prevent corruption, which we'll talk about when we see it. Our population pool. Each of these little yellow circles is a population. So, say a unit of population is required to work a farm each, for example. This is how much food you need to increase your population. These guys are free workers. They're just not doing anything right now. Useful to always have an idle worker if you can. And then our cards are going to show up at the bottom, alongside our options for civic actions and military actions. And our type of government will show in, well, what looks like a shed at the moment. That's because everyone starts with despotism. And then down the right-hand side is everybody's character. You'll notice that the red AI has already picked a leader to use, Sun Tzu. Nobody else has had the chance to play anything yet to become a leader. And their military strength is adjacent to them as well. That was a lot of information, so I'll kind of just talk through things as I go. It seems more natural. So, first turn tends to be pretty standard from what I've seen from the AI. You use your 2 food to generate another population point. The more population that you've taken, the less full this bar's going to be, which means they'll start demanding things to make them happy. We're going to play our leader, Hammurabi. We're going to use one of our free populations to develop a mine. That increases our monthly, well, turnly, I guess. I don't even know what the time period would be between turns. It's probably not monthly. It's probably like, I don't know, half-centurily. I don't know. But it means the next turn will generate 3, not 2 production. So that's typically what the AI will do off the get-go. They'll play a leader, they'll generate more production, they'll boost their population by 1, and then they'll do something else. In our case, we can do 2 other things, potentially, because as Hammurabi, one of these red pips we can steal and use it as a white pip instead. We don't have any ability to build the wonder right now. We don't have any production left. We don't really have a huge number of options. So, we can just pick 2... Well, we have a couple of choices. I'm going to pick Engineering Genius, because it means that we can pay 2 production less for to generate progress towards our wonder. You can't use yellow cards the same turn that you pull them unless you have the wonder that lets you do that, which clearly we don't. And the only thing we can physically afford to do if we take this is to take rich land as well, which I don't think is that good, but I mean, it's fine. The alternative is we could take, frugality instead. We can't take another wonder while we're still building ours, so that's really all we can do. So we'll end turn. Because we had 1 red pip left, we pulled up 1 extra military card. Red and blue have decided to form a pact with one of their political cards, which is fine. Typically with the Generation A cards, which you'll see in the top left corner, they're all positive events to some degree. That will not be consistent as we go through the ages. That will very much not be true. So, start of our turn, we now have a politics phase, so we would play any of our cards that we can in our politics hand on the right-hand side. We only have a tactics card, we cannot play it, so we're just going to skip. It's a shame, because playing a politics-based card will typically earn you a little bit of culture. You can see... Well, I was going to say with red we'd see it, but they played a pact, so they will not get culture either. But let's say they played a card, it makes something come out of this hand, they get a culture for doing so. So, second turn, usually the primary objective is to build another lab to get another science on the go. We might not do that, though. Nice little undo feature, super convenient. We might not do that, though, because Stonehenge will help us generate science. Because for each stage of Stonehenge you build, try and put my teeth in and say that, you immediately get science equal to that stage's cost. So I'm thinking we might build 1 stage by ourselves, then use Engineering Genius to save the cost of building it. We'll still get the 2 science, but we didn't have to spend 2 production to do so. And then what I'm thinking we might do instead, you'll notice we have corruption if we have too much left over. What I'm thinking we might do instead is potentially pick up printing press. Printing press is an urban building that lets us build... Well, it's a technology that lets us build libraries, which we can't do right now. This is a temple space if we wanted to use it. But I'm thinking, rather than do that right now, we'll boost our population by 1. You'll notice we now have an unhappiness because we don't have enough happiness-generating buildings to make that population happy. If they're idle, that's still fine. But if you try and get an unhappy population to work something, you'll have no production that turn. So that is absolutely absolute no. You want to avoid that at all costs. But you'll notice that Stonehenge gives us a happy face when we complete it. So that's why we're going to try and prioritize getting it built. Rather than increasing our lab, we're going to try and get this built, and then hopefully we'll get a science technology that's maybe better than printing press. Maybe we'll get alchemy, which is the upgrade of philosophy. And because we are Hammurabi, we could still use a point. So we could still take printing press anyway if we wanted to. Maybe we'll do that instead. Because, yeah, we still don't have any corruption. Let's do that. Again, I'm playing relatively quickly because, well, do you want a video that's 4 or 5 hours long? Probably not. We'll probably end up splitting this in 2 anyway, but it's kind of just a crash course into what this game is. Super cheap on Steam. There's a card, for example, that got pushed out, so we get 2 science each. We finally have a card we can play in our politics phase, so Naval Trade Agreement. So Civilization A gets an extra ability to colonize and 1 less blue token, so it's harder to avoid corruption. Civilization B gets 2 extra blue tokens. The AI seems to be pretty lukewarm when it comes to accepting anything that you send them as a rule of thumb. But let's say yellow because they have corruption potentially. Let's see if they'll take it. They will not. We couldn't do anything else, and it doesn't cost us anything to do that, so it was still worth doing. This turn, we probably want to finish Stonehenge. It would cost us 3 production if we can, get that done. I think that's probably wise. There's nothing we can do to make it cheaper, so I'm just going to build it now. We get 3 science for doing so. We get 1 culture per turn and a happiness for this. Remember, culture's what you win with, so you do want to start trying to get some out early. Games on average maybe last 20 turns-ish from experience. Now we can develop printing press if we want to, or we can get irrigation for more food. I'm going to say for now, let's get printing press. And let's put a population. Can we put 1 in there? No, we can't. So it costs us 3. Maybe we don't develop that as a result. Maybe we'll grab irrigation instead. Irrigation only costs 3 science to develop, so it's super cheap. And we can use one of our points here to upgrade our farm. We'll use rich land. We might as well. We've got it in our hand. We still can't afford to use anything to, say, develop warriors. You'll notice we still only have a combat strength of 1, so we're going to want to deal with that soon. We might even deal with it now, hey? I still want irrigation, so what we'll do instead then is we'll do that. That gives us a combat strength of 2. We still have a tactics card in our hand. You need 3 infantry to get 2 combat bonus. We can't do that yet, but at least if we get attacked, we can throw a couple of cards in defense and not lose whatever it is we're going to get hit by. So I think that's what we should do. Do we want to pick up Machu Picchu? So Machu Picchu, your best age A or 1 farm, same thing for your mine, produces it just produces more. That's how you should read that. Does cost 9 production to build. I like Machu Picchu, but I don't think right now we're going to really be able to get that to sing. So instead what we could do is take a technology like, say, cartography. That'll give us more combat strength and bonus for colonization. We haven't seen that yet. Or we could say just grab Code of Laws. Or even Warfare. Both of these are tempting in their own way. So Warfare gives us 1 extra combat strength and an extra military action per turn, which extra helpful for us right now because of Hammurabi. Or we could use Code of Laws. It costs 6 science, but you get 1 extra civic action per turn. We have to be a little bit careful because we're only pumping out 1 science per turn, so, you know, we don't have a ton to use. But just to keep us safe, I'm tempted to get Warfare, but I don't like Warfare really as a card, but we will take it. It'll give us a little bit of a buffer. There are definite advantages to having high strength relative to others, and I think that's probably the safest way to do it. So we'll end turn. We are going to want to think about replacing Hammurabi in the near future, because if you have, say, an AJ leader, that's fine in age 1, but if you flip 2 ages ahead, you'll lose the leader automatically. Development of Warfare. Each player with an idle warrior may build a warrior's unit for free. We're going to do that. We're going to hope an event doesn't fire that would offer us a free temple if we have an idle worker, because we don't have an idle worker anymore, right? So that would just be something we couldn't benefit from. We're being offered a pact, so we're being offered the ability to use a food as production during our turn, and red would get the opposite. I'm going to say no, because we would want... Probably we'd want the opposite for that, so we're going to say no dice. So, politics phase. We could offer a naval agreement again, or we could use Reign of Terror. If we do that, we get a culture for playing the card. It would go on the left side, and it would push out an A-tier event. We just don't know what it is. We're going to do that, because we probably won't be the weakest when the time comes round. And we got Development of Agriculture, so we get 2 food, which is awesome, because that means we can boost our population immediately. We want to play our Tactics card, because we now have 3 warriors. So our combat strength goes from 4 to 6 without really doing anything. Tactics are great, but next turn this will become available to everybody to use, if they want to. It does cost them 2 military actions to play it, though, given it's not their own tactic. Now we have 3 civic actions left. What do we want to do? I'd love to get Michelangelo, but we can't do that right now. He's too expensive to pick up. So instead, we're going to... We're going to play Irrigation, use Rich Land to upgrade an Age A farm to an Age 1 farm. We're then going to use Printing Press, and we're going to... Oh, we still can't afford it if we do that. But I want to have 3 food next turn so I get 1 more population. We could grab an Age 1 Frugality. It means when you increase your population, you get 2 more food. Or we could pick up Urban Growth, and that'll make the library we get next turn be 2 production cheaper. Many options. I'm going to grab Urban Growth. We don't need more military strength. That's not a priority. Oh, we got an aggression card. We can talk about that next turn. And we got 3 military cards. So that's not a great time to get that event. We'll explain why in a moment. So we can pick, in this case, do we want 2 food or 2 production? We're going to want 2 production, because we can already get another population. And with Development of Civil Life, we can choose to do something for 1 cost less. You can hit that so we can check a look, take a look at our options. So we do have a few things we can do. Given that we're going to be low on science right now, I think the play is we develop Printing Press for less. So I'm going to develop Printing Press for 2, not 3 science. You can see that Red's ploughing out 5 science a turn already, so they have very different priorities. Yeah, let's talk about this aggression card. So, aggression cards can do a variety of things. The reason why I was saying, oh no, military cards were drawn, is that the opponents can use them to potentially defend themselves. Right now, we only have a mild advantage on strength, so this is not something we're going to play. We also have a colony card in our hands. Does exactly what it says on the tin, and we would actually bid for who wants the colony the most by using military strength. I don't want to play Pestilence, because when it comes out, everyone loses the population, and I think that'll impact us worse than most. We are going to play Dark Ages, though, because if people lose science, not a big deal for us. It meant Reign of Terror came out, we have no more AJ cards in the deck to use for events. Weakest civilization loses a population. Yellow's the weakest. When it comes to ties, it's the person closest to you wins. So yellow's further away from me in the turn orders they lost with blue. They had an idle worker though, so they didn't lose a lot. If they didn't have any idle workers, they would have to demolish a building or a military unit in order to make that happen. So, this turn, what do we want to do? We probably want to get a population immediately. Michelangelo is still on the table. So in his case, urban buildings and wonders produce extra culture based on their happiness. That's not relevant for a library because it doesn't generate any, but our wonder does produce 1, so that's kind of helpful. And when you take a wonder from the card row, you don't pay extra. So you may notice that Himeji Castle costs 2 actions, even though it's in the 1 action group. Every time you pick up a wonder and complete it, each wonder becomes 1 more expensive. So if I had Himeji Castle and another wonder came up here, it would be 3. I don't think that's that relevant to us right now. Michelangelo is typically a really solid pick. Saladin's pretty good too. But we still have time to pick an Age 1 leader up if we want to. I mean, we could even grab Genghis Khan on the cheap. He's possibly useful for us too, because if you have high relative combat strength, you get 3 bonus culture. Might be worth picking up, you know. That's not bad at all. Does mean we can't use our military action towards civic actions anymore. But I'm going to grab that and use the military action we would get from Hammurabi to play him. So that works for me. Then what do we want to do? We want to make sure we definitely get a library out on the field. We'll do it for cheap because of urban growth. I'm actually going to do it twice. Get 2 libraries on the field. Because of our government type, we can only have 2 of each type of urban building. Stinky, but what are you going to do? Now means we're up to 3 culture, 3 science per turn, which is not bad. Iron we can't pick up right now, but we can play Genghis Khan. And we've used our military action to get a civic action back, so we now can do one other thing. And I'm thinking the thing we want to do is upgrade our farm. So we are a very consistent player right now. 3-3-3-3. For context and comparison, 1-3-5-1. And they have less combat strength than us. But they do also have an engineering genius card and a drama tech in their hand. Ours is empty. Blue has extreme unhappiness. So right now, if they were to just do their turn and hit end turn, they would produce nothing because of the unhappiness. Whereas yellow has an unhappy person, but they're idle, so they would not have the same problem. I don't think we have to do anything else. That's end turn. I am never going to play Pestilence to get that out. I do not want it. And here's the first colony. So blue bid 1. They're just going to offer one of their swordsmen up, I'm sure. And then yellow and red have said thanks, but no thanks. This historic territory gives you a one-off 6 culture and then a permanent 1 happiness. For us to beat that bid, we'd have to at least put 2 swordsmen in, which would knock our combat strength down to 2. So we're going to say no and let them have it. Game's pretty good at going through these turns at a breakneck pace. I've been told the mobile version of this game is a little bit slow, but it's still pretty competitive. I still don't think we're going to attack anybody, so we're going to play Good Harvest, see what we get. Rebellion. We don't have any discontent workers, so that's fine. Only yellow does, and they lose 2 civic actions for the next turn. Poopy. They will not going to love that. We could play this tactics card because of Genghis Khan, where he lets you make your infantry function as horses for tactics, but that's not of any benefit to us, so that's a waste of time. Really, our question for this turn is, do we want to get iron now or do we want drama? Theatre technology gives you happiness and, relatively speaking, a lot of culture for their cost. Libraries are a halfway house between science and culture, and then you have labs that are all science. Religions, so, temples tend to be a tiny amount of culture and lots of happiness. And the final group, I haven't even seen on the board yet, but it'd be like arenas, which give you lots of happiness potentially, and also a little bit of combat strength as well. They're interesting, but we haven't seen one yet. I'll point it out next time I notice. So I'm thinking we should probably grab iron because, well, if you can't build anything, what are you going to do? But we're probably not going to develop it this turn. What we're going to do instead, this is going to be a really strange looking turn. But I'm going to pick up 2 rich lands and do almost nothing else. I'm going to grab 1, honestly, and then boost our production so we don't get corruption. Really, the only question is, do we want to build another warrior? We probably should. So now we have 4. We can now play this tactic, and it puts our combat strength up to 9, because Genghis Khan, our infantry can act as horses. So 2 of our infantry are acting like horses. So that means we can fire this tactic twice. So that's why our combat strength went up so much. Yeah, that works for me. So next turn we may potentially attack somebody if we still have a wimp on the field. Moses increased up to 6 strength, so maybe not. Red's still at 5. Is there anything else we'd rather play? I don't think we want to play colonies because we don't have any colonial advantage. Blue does. They get a bonus of 2 on their colony roll all the time, which is why this 2's up top. So I think we're going to try and play Kidnap. So Kidnap costs a military action to use, but you take a civic card from your opponent's hand, assuming you can obey all the card-taking limitations. If you play it, you get 3 culture. So we know what's in their hand. And as a result, we know that there's no... Well, these are the cards that we know that are in their hand that we could play. What we don't know is what's in their military cards hand. Man, can you get out of the way? I've got a cat stuck to me. It's always the way when I'm recording these things. Cat stuck in. Yeah, so these are the cards that we could potentially choose to take if we won the battle. We can see how many military cards they have. We can't tell what they are, though. We can see that Leonardo da Vinci has more cards, so he's probably more likely to have defensively optionally cards. I'm just going to attack blue. And we fail, because they had a card that gives them extra defense, and they burned a couple of others. Still not a bad outcome. So we spend 1 military action to make them throw 3 cards away. So it's not all bad. So this turn, we're developing iron. That absolutely has to happen. We're going to use rich land to upgrade a mine for just 1 production. So we spent 1 to gain a bonus 1 every turn. So you love to see that. Really, our next question is, do we want to upgrade our swordsmen? Well, our troops to swordsmen. And I think the answer is probably yes. So if we do, say, swordsmen, we can then upgrade these. We won't get any military cards next turn, though, if we do that. So that's why it's not always something we want to rush to do. But I'm going to grab swordsmen anyway, and instead we're going to upgrade another 1 of our mines. So we're getting 5 a turn now. And I think we're okay with that. There's nothing in here I'd really want. Universitas Carolina is very... I like this. But we don't really produce enough production right now to make a 9 production wonder really sing for us. It also doesn't generate any happiness. It does produce 2 science, but no happiness. Great Wall would be probably more useful if we could get a hold of it. We'll see what happens. But I definitely want the ability to draw military cards, and how many you get is dependent on how many red pips you have at the end of the turn. And I think we're about to end Age 1 any moment now. Another colony gives you food. It makes you lose a blue token, but you get 3 extra potential pops in your pool. This is not 3 extra population. It's 3 extra down here. which makes it cheaper to get population. Having said that, we are not competing with 6, so absolutely not. Because it's Red's turn next, they're probably feeling a bit more bold, because they can now upgrade things if they need to. Scientific breakthrough, you get science equal to what you're producing right now. We produce 3, so that's fine for us. But Leonardo da Vinci with his 19 science is crazy. And we're now into age 2. So we lose 2 yellow pips from our banks, which makes it more expensive to recruit people. And yellow loses Moses as their leader because he's an age A, an ancient era leader, and we're now 2 ages ahead. That's a lot of talking, I think, for one episode, so we'll get into age 2 next episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I know it's not FTL, but time is a crunching, and I wanted to get something a bit different out there. We'll probably end up playing more FTL later anyway, but let me know if you've enjoyed it. I do appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now. Thank you for watching the video, and if you'd like to see more, feel free to stick around.